Welcome to the Spiritually Inspired Podcast. My name is Jayson Barniske. I'm a spiritual teacher, yoga artist, and author. The purpose of this podcast is to be the match, igniting your spiritual fire. Enjoy the show. Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Spiritually Inspired Podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Just before I get started, I would really like to thank Podbean. A lot of you may have found this podcast recently because I was just honored by Podbean with a national feature on their app. So I'm very grateful for the extra exposure and being able to get this message out to more people. Today's podcast is the first time I've ever done a podcast that's a part 2. The Source of Happiness, our podcast 28 that I did, was actually the most popular podcast I've ever done. And what a great question. The other day I was actually getting a haircut and I was talking to the hairdresser, and really hairdressers are sometimes the best psychologists around. And I was telling her about some of the stuff that I was going through, and I was saying, well, this really doesn't make me happy, so I don't want to do it. And this doesn't make me happy, so I'm not going to do that either. And she asked me the ultimate question, well, what does make you happy? And I love that because it really sparked a huge question in myself. And thinking about the part 1, The Source of Happiness, and if you haven't heard it, this may be a good time to stop this podcast and go back and listen to part 1. Before you listen to part 2. But part 1 is great because it talked a lot about happiness and describes its qualities, describes how it moves and changes throughout our entire life through different stages, saying that it never stays still. And talking about the source of happiness is truly within. But how do we really achieve, or how do we feel or become happy? What is happiness? I know the source, but let's put our finger on what is happiness. It's very easy. Like I said when I was getting my haircut, I'm not happy doing this. I'm not happy doing that. Well, what does make you happy? And recently I've gone through a bunch of changes in my life, ending of relationship, moving from one place to another. I'm no longer in San Diego. I moved back to Imperial County, my place of origin, and I took over my old yoga studio that I've been kind of absent from for several years. And I can't tell you how happy I've been. I've been elated. In North County, San Diego, there is a saturation of yoga teachers. And even though I'm very experienced and a very good yoga teacher, I wasn't teaching as much as I wanted to. And so as soon as I moved here, I literally picked up about 15 classes a week in 2 different studios. And I am so happy. And why is that? I'm so happy because I've come back in alignment with my purpose. And I'm more in alignment with purpose than I've ever been. So what is happiness? Happiness is living our purpose. Think about when you feel gratification. And it's funny, as a yoga teacher, we say we often don't feel gratification or get recognized in the spiritual world, whatever work you may be doing. A lot of times, those gratifications or signs from the universe are few and far between. But I feel most gratified when I'm getting through to people, when I'm touching people. I love doing this podcast because I get out to a lot of other people. But lately, my purpose, teaching yoga, I've been doing a lot of it. I taught 4 classes today. And I'm recording this podcast at 10 at night. And I started my first class this morning at 5:30 in the morning. So when I'm living my purpose, I am so excited. I don't need to slow down or eat. I'm literally nourished by my purpose itself. And all the other little things are just details that really are not anywhere near as important as living my purpose. And I'm so happy right now because, like I said, I've been teaching so much and feeling so energized and so in alignment with my purpose. So really, happiness is living our purpose. And yeah, when we live our purpose, we are abundantly happy. Yeah, and even just talking about this, I'm really lighting up. I'm sure you can hear it in my voice. So, if living our purpose is happiness, here's the next big question. What is purpose? And I'll give you a good tip. If you are ever in a conversation with anyone and you don't like the subject matter, or if it's a lower chakra conversation, you can shift any conversation into a spiritual conversation by beginning to talk about purpose. Because everybody wants to know what the meaning of life is. So talking to anyone and you want to really raise the vibe of that, start talking about purpose. What their purpose is, what your purpose is, what purpose is, period. So in my book, Ancient Wisdom for Modern Enlightenment, I believe it was the very first chapter, I go into great detail about purpose. And I did a lot of research and a lot of seeking intuitively, internally. What is purpose? What's the purpose? What's the meaning of life? And there are 3 different, I guess you could call them aspects or ways of teaching purpose that I used. So I'll go over those briefly, and I'll refer you to the book. You can find on the podcast website or my personal website. There will be links for all those on the bottom. But yeah, if you want to go into the book, you'll find even more detail. So the first is, it's actually, I got the idea, began to understand it from Eckhart Tolle, who teaches about inner and outer purpose. So what is inner purpose? What is outer purpose? All right. So our inner purpose for everyone is all the same. Our inner purpose is to find God within. That's why it's so important to do our spiritual practice. That's why I'm doing this podcast. But it's so important every day to connect with our source, to connect with our identity, our real self, the highest self. That's inner purpose, right? And so what's outer purpose? Outer purpose is being present in the moment. Because if you're connected to your divine source within, and you greet each moment with awareness, with presence, you are literally going to be manifesting the divine into the world. And when I do this, I find there is so much synchronicity that happens. The things that I want are literally unfolding in front of me. And I just watch the process because I'm identifying with the source and bringing everything I want into my life. A great example was, it was kind of funny, but the other day I was doing yoga and I had some music on and I just put it on YouTube and it was on autoplay. And I knew this was the time I needed to be doing my practice. I really needed to just work on me. And I've been teaching so much. I've been so in alignment with this purpose. And I've been connecting so much within. That's the inner purpose, right? And then the outer purpose is just experiencing the present moment. Being right here, right now. So in the present moment, these synchronicities that was happening, YouTube on autoplay, I would think of the song that I wanted to come on next, and it would literally come on next for the whole 2-hour practice. And it blew me away. I was like, well, I want this song next. And I was just laughing, thinking it couldn't possibly happen, but it would. So synchronicity is a great marker or a great yard sign to show us when we're in alignment with our purpose. When synchronicities happen, it's like a flag saying, go, keep going in that direction. You're in the right direction. And keep going. Synchronicity is huge in recognizing your purpose. So inner and outer purpose. Beautiful concept. Very simple. Inner and outer purpose. Do your sadhana. Do your spiritual practice. Tune in. And that's why I like to do it every day first thing. Because then first thing I wake up, I do it. I'm in the habit of doing it. Then when I go out, I can be in the present moment and show up with whatever my own personal talents, whatever my own innate abilities are, because we all have our own unique abilities, right? And then I can manifest the divine into the world. and it's beautiful. Another beautiful synchronicity. I didn't even know about this Podbean thing, me being featured on the main Podbean app. And I move away from the big city. I move away from San Diego. And I was living in an amazing house. I have to say thanks to my dear friends, Jason and Endearment, for letting me stay there in that moment of transition. And they said, this is going to be huge for you. This is going to be a life-changing moment. So I stayed there for a little while, and the house was amazing. It's like literally a huge mansion with a river and a waterfall in the background. And like literally 15 feet away from where I would wake up or practice yoga every morning was a river and a waterfall. And I knew I needed to move back home. I needed to move back to the Imperial Valley to teach yoga. And my rational mind was saying, no, like this doesn't even make sense. But I realized like I had a duty. There's very few yoga teachers here and even fewer experienced and certified yoga teachers here. And I was the very first one in this community. Opened the very first yoga studio. And yeah, the community really needed me, so I felt a great sense of purpose. As soon as I moved back, the day I moved back, I looked at my account on Podbean, and I had been nationally featured. What a synchronicity to show me, like, look, you are in alignment with your purpose. Keep doing what you're doing. And yeah, so that's why I decided I needed to record this new podcast today. So inner and outer purpose. Connect in, right, to the source. Outer purpose to live in the present moment. So minor and major purpose is the next one. I love this idea, and my own life is an incredible example. I think the very second podcast we did was on my story, and if you want to learn more about my story, go back to that one. But the minor and major purpose. So it's like the things that we learn early on in our life, the lessons we learn prepare us for the challenges that we have to face later in our lives. All right? So there's a great story about a young man who was a thief. All right? And he wasn't even a very good thief. He wasn't even paying the bills. And it's kind of funny. He went to a guru out in the middle of the forest, and he asked his guru for a blessing because business was not so good. And to his surprise, the guru said, okay, I'll bless you, but I'm going to give you some advice too. I want you to hire 2 or 3 other guys to come work with you and help you steal more things. Very interesting story, but an incredibly insightful guru. I want to help you be a better thief. Right? So the young man said, okay, he took the advice. He went and found 2 or 3 other people. And he came back to the guru a month later, and he thanked him from the bottom of his heart because he finally now was able to get his own home, to start paying the bills. And he had a lot more security. So he asked the guru for another blessing. He even gave him some money this time. The guru said, okay, I'll bless you. But now what I want you to do is to get about 10 to 15 people to start working for you. And again, the young thief was surprised, but he readily agreed, received his blessing, and went on his way. Another month later, he came back. Oh, so grateful, because now he was living in this world of abundance. He had more than he ever needed. He thanked the guru, gave him more money, received another blessing. And again, the guru said, yeah, now I want you to go get about 50 guys. I want you to get a whole little gang of guys to work for you. And again, the young man came back. So this went on and on, back and forth. 50, 100, 1,000 guys. Oh man, eventually he had about 10,000 guys. It was the largest band of thieves in the entire country. Oh my God. Imagine how many things they were stealing. Imagine what the actual impact they were doing on the society, right? So that's this young man's minor purpose. And he was actually even guided by the guru to steal things, right? Very strange story. So his major purpose comes into play. One day, an evil tyrant came to power in that country. And horrible things were happening. People were being raped, pillaged, taken into slavery. The leader, this tyrant, was just absolutely horrible. couldn't even imagine someone like this. One day, the young man went back to the guru, who is now 35 years old, went back to the guru. And he was just so grateful, really appreciated his help. My life has been this incredible success. And he asked the guru for his guidance, what he can do, just to serve the guru. The guru said, okay, now what I want you to do is take your band of thieves and I want you to overthrow this evil tyrant. And I mean, the guru's advice had always worked so far. So the master of thieves took his army of thieves and went and overthrew the tyrant. And because they were thieves, they were so cunning. It was very easy for them to be spies and very sneaky about their business. There was even very little loss of life. Very shortly after, this man, the leader of the thieves, he actually got kind of sick and he passed away. So he didn't take over the leadership of the country, but someone else did. And they actually had a great ruler who took over, and there was an incredible amount of peace in the land. Wow, what an interesting story, right? So that was his major purpose, was to restore order to the land. So sometimes our minor purpose may not be so savory. It may be not a very good thing. But our major purpose, maybe the minor purpose is preparing us for that. So for me, I know in my own life, I went through some crazy stuff. Drug issues, selling drugs, marketing drugs to people. And then later, I even got into martial arts and I was fighting. And yeah, martial arts are great, amazing. But my problem with it is that it got so much to my ego that I really was not the person I wanted to be. And at one point, when I started doing martial arts, I found yoga. So being angry to want to fight is actually what led me to do yoga. And being a great martial artist, I had this incredible intensity. So my minor purpose of being the martial artist, it led me to do my spiritual practice with this incredible intensity. And now I have a very advanced yoga practice. My minor purpose of doing the sales and the marketing and all that stuff, now it transformed into me getting my message out and sharing with other people. So a lot of times what we do when we're younger, it may not be exactly who we wanted to be, but perhaps it prepared us for who we would become. Think about it in your life. It's interesting. That's an interesting proposition. Think about when you were younger and what was really the most important thing to you, what you were focused on the most in your life. What was your main priority? And then think about now, what's your main priority? What's your main purpose? And how did what you learned and focused on when you were younger, what you prioritized when you were younger, prepare you for your life's work now? We are the result of all our actions. So the final purpose, the final demarcation, or the final way that I use to describe purpose is individual and collective, right? So we all have an individual purpose in the world. Yours may be different than mine. I may be here to teach yoga. You may be here to create an alternative energy source, or create some device that's going to clean the ocean, or whatever it is, right? So we all have an individual passion that really satisfies us when we do it. And there's a difference, I think, between passion and compassion that's not always clarified enough. Passion is a more lustful act. Compassion is very heart-centered. So passion would be a lower chakra desire, and compassion would be a higher chakra action. All right? So that which we're compassionate about really drives us to our life's purpose. The things that when you think about is so beautiful it almost tears your eyes up, that's your purpose. So we have our individual purpose, and because this planet is one big organism, we all have a purpose too. And I see the species of humanity, humankind, is really our purpose is being clarified to renew the planet and to send love back into the earth, right? And we would all agree, like at the current rate that we're using our resources, there will be no water left in, I think, 2040 or 2080. So things have to change. And I'm going to jump to a different topic right now. It's a really great topic, and I was really inspired. And learning this helped me to clarify the message of what I'm teaching and what I'm doing in the world. And so I watched a documentary put on by Vice. You can find it. It's called The Third Industrial Revolution, A Radical New Sharing Economy. And it is by Jeremy Rifkin, is the guy who's speaking. And he's this amazing economist. So now you're probably thinking, what the heck is Jayson talking about? He was just talking about purpose, and now he's talking about economy. And it's funny because I'm taking some online college classes right now, and it's been driving me nuts. One of the topics in the conversation thread, I'm taking a finance class, and it was greed is good. And it wanted us to describe why greed was so good for economy. And this just drove me nuts in terms of my values, in terms of my ethics. So I'll give you a quick rundown of the third industrial revolution, right? And I encourage you to watch that video if you're interested. But so there have been 2 industrial revolutions so far, and there's one that's we are in the process of manifesting in the world. So there's 3 things required in any industrial revolution. One, source of communication, source of energy, source of transportation. So the first industrial revolution happened in England. Steam power was very prevalent. And the source of communication was the telegraph, right? And then that's when trains were like new on the scene. So you had those 3 elements, right? And it really spurred a rapid expansion of society. The second industrial revolution really took place in the United States. Things shifted from coal and steam to petrol, fuel, gasoline. That was our source of energy. That's our source of energy today. And then the source of communication, everybody would think the internet, but no, believe it or not, it was the telephone at that time. And the source of transportation, everybody had cars now, so everybody could move around, semi-trucks to move things. And we got to a certain point of expansion. And now we're in the process of bringing about the third industrial revolution. So a quick little segue is we're at a point now where the economy is kind of declining. And we could even be producing more, creating more things, but for some reason, our economy is not moving, it's not growing the way we wanted it to. And there's a great problem with economics, is that it runs on the basis of Newton's laws, right? And you all know Newton's, I think it's his second law, is that energy can neither be created nor destroyed. And I totally get that for physics, right? But in terms of economy, that's not necessarily true. Once we pull all the oil out of the planet, there's going to be no more oil left. Eventually there will be, but it's going to take millions of years, right? Once we mine all the metal ore out of the planet, there's not going to be any more metal ore anytime soon. So that running an economy based on that rule is it's a quick road to disaster. There's a really important term. It's called aggregate efficiency, and this is what signals the downfall of any industrial revolution. So aggregate efficiency it's a very interesting term. Remember this term. I had to look back at the documentary and find this term because it's so important. So let's say the example he used in the film, right, was a lion chases down a deer. It eats the deer, and out of the entire energy that deer composes, the energy transaction between the energy spent by the lion and what he actually takes in, he gets about 10% of the energy from the deer for future use. Right? So because he spent so much energy burning up, and I know the female lions are the ones who do the hunting. But so she chased down the deer, caught the deer, ate a large part of it, left some of it to be consumed by the planet or other animals, whatever it is. So the energy transaction was about 10% of what was actually taken from the deer. In terms of our economy, why this matters to us is like, let's say we pull 1 million barrels of oil out of the planet. We're only going to get about 12% of the actual energy of that oil for use or consumption by the consumer. So what that means is to pull the oil requires energy. To transfer the oil requires energy. To store it requires energy. To create it into gasoline. To transport it to the gas station, everything that it needs to be done for the transaction, for the person to buy it, they're only going to get about 12%. Oh man, so we're not really using our planet, our resources very efficiently, right? And what that means is, yes, we're going to run out of resources very quickly. But also, once an economy reaches a peak in aggregate efficiency, and I believe it was in 2007 or 2008 for capitalism, when oil shot up. Remember when oil was like $4.50 a gallon? And then it's going to go back down. And they brought the price of oil down. But what's going to happen is the economy, no matter how hard we work, no matter how hard we try, it's really not going to change because we've already hit the peak. We've hit the max that this industrial revolution can take. In America, it's about 12% aggregate efficiency. In Europe, places have about 15%. The highest in the world it's ever been was in Japan. It was about 20% 4 or 5 years ago. And now it's steadily on the downward trend, no matter what we do. It's not going to go back up. And this is why it's so important to bring about the third industrial revolution. And I promise you, I'm going to get back to purpose here. Mine and yours. Just bear with me one more moment. And this is really interesting stuff. So the third industrial revolution, what is it? So again, we have our 3 sources of each industrial revolution. 3 things. So for the industrial revolution, for energy, what it's going to be, we're going to create a free energy source. Wind, solar, it's going to get so good that it's nearly 100% aggregate efficiency. And I mean, in the 70s, when scientists tried to create wind energy or solar energy, I believe it was like 70 cents for a single watt. Now today it's about 3 to 4 cents. And eventually we're going to get so good. And there are free energy devices around already. That's a whole nother discussion. You're going to have to go to a YouTube conspiracy page because I'm not going to get into that on this one. But for a free energy source, when those start coming out and being known and being utilized, then we're going to have free energy. And it's going to change everything when we have free energy. The mode of communication is not the internet. The new thing is the Internet of Things. Right? So everything is attached to the internet, from your watch to your phone to your fridge to your microwave to your every single thing is going to be attached to the internet. And then the source of transportation is it's going to be autonomous. And in a few years from now, Uber is going to be so cheap that it would be cheaper for you to call like an Uber taxi with no driver to come pick you up for a very nominal fee, because that Uber is using free energy on the Internet of Things, and it's going to take you wherever you need to go for pennies on the dollar. So amazing, right? Everything's going to be way less expensive because this cost of energy went down, and we're literally going to be at peak level, perfected aggregate efficiency. Sounds like an amazing place, an amazing world that we're in the process of creating right now. So let's tie this back into purpose. Let's create this. Let's do it. Right? In the next maybe by the time our kids are growing up, perhaps by their kids, it's going to be about 2 generations, Jeremy Rifkin was talking about, to create the infrastructure to facilitate the shift from the second to the third industrial revolution. Now, the problem, and I talked about free energy technology and this new technology stuff. This new technology is amazing, but do you think the oil companies are going to just invite people into their doors to create something to make their entire market obsolete? Absolutely not. I remember, my dad, he went to the GM engineering school to engineer cars in Michigan. And I think this was in the late 60s, early 70s. And he and some of his friends came up with a carburetor. Now, again, this is in the early 70s. They came up with a carburetor that could get 65 miles to the gallon. And he took it to his teachers. He even presented it at the board. And they threw it away. And they said, nobody's going to want that because then we can't sell any gas. And my dad was so angry. This was like during Vietnam. He was so angry that he quit school and he left school and he got drafted into the army because of it. But he was that upset and he felt that lost because, he couldn't get backing. And so today, it's much easier to get your own patent and to do your own things and to create your own inventions and to get your word out with the internet, and everybody's so connected. But the problem is, unto this point, a lot of the incredible inventors or creators get bought out. And if I invented this incredible device that creates free energy, you just have to turn it on and it can create electricity out of the air. Right? It's a free energy device, maybe enhancing or utilizing some Tesla technology, which already exists. But like I said, I'm not going to get into all that stuff now. The problem is a lot of people, you're likely approached by somebody from the energy industry and bought out. I'll give you $20 million for your patent, but you can't ever use it. You can't ever talk about it. And so here's where my and your purpose comes in. Our collective purpose. Because like I said, it's going to take about 2 generations to create the infrastructure to bring about this change. And what's going to be required for those entire 2 generations to make the shift is a very strong, empowered system of values. And that's why spiritual teachers, spiritual leaders are so important, are so crucial in the world right now. That's why this podcast is so important. That's why you listening to it is so important. That's why being inspired and living our purpose is so important. I came to the reality that one of my most important teachings is going to be to teach people to honor their values. First, find out what we value. Collectively and individually, find out what are your most important values. Whether it's respect for others and Mother Nature, whether it's honesty, whether it's being compassionate and kind to other people, which are all probably in your value system. But really to honor your values is to live in this amazing, beautiful, large house, a waterfall in the back, and move away. To somewhere that is not necessarily the most desirable place of living, but it's somewhere that you're really going to live your purpose. So to make the hard decisions, because it's part of your purpose. And we intuitively know when we listen, right? When we tune in, and then we're present in the moment, the minor and major purpose, right? I'm sorry, the inner and outer purpose. When we tune in to our inner purpose and then present in the moment, when these opportunities come, we will be able to make the hard decisions and fulfill our purpose, right? Manifest our destiny. So for me, it is so important to live my values, to teach others, to be an example, because I can't really teach anybody anything. I can just be an example. And I really did. I moved in from this amazing mansion to the desert. It's 120 degrees. It's going to be 120 degrees here in 3 months. So I moved to a place that is not desirable to live. And I didn't have to. I chose to. And man, it feels good to choose to live my purpose. And you can do it too. And that's what honoring our values is all about. So I just had to share this whole idea of the Industrial Revolution because societally, that's where we're going. And I can very clearly see my picture. And I want you to look at your part in this play as well, because you are very important in bringing about this change. All right. So, yeah, I want to finish this podcast with the meditation that I've been working at. My friend Matt Belair, he's been on the show. He did a wonderful podcast called Conversation with an Oracle, and he was working with, I don't know her name. It was Unity Grace, I believe is her name. So you can look at that one. And at the very end of the podcast, he said, if there's one thing that you had to tell everyone out there, what would you do? What would you tell everyone? This oracle. And she said to start working with water. And so amazing. I was living right next to a waterfall, and I started working with water. And I keep a small little bottle of water, and I meditate. I work with it every day. And so going back to resources of the planet, water is going to be at almost a crisis point if we don't start utilizing and respecting it a little bit more. A lot more, actually. And so me personally, I've found so much love in working with water. And I'm sure we're all familiar with Dr. Yamamoto's experiments on water, right? Where he would put the word love on water and put the word hate on a bottle of water. And then he would examine them weeks later under the microscope. And the bottle of water with the word love, the microscopic structures were beautiful, like snowflakes and just these incredible structures. And the less savory words, they made horrible, ugly pictures. So I started to work with water. And what I realized immediately is when I'm loving water, I'm really loving myself too. Because I'm all water. I'm 70-80% water myself. So when I love water, and then I'm really loving me more. So I want to share just a very quick, very short meditation. I have a glass of water with me, and I've been doing this every morning, every time I drink water. And if you want, go get a glass of water. Pause the podcast. Come back if you have a bottle of water with you. And take the water in your hands. Close your eyes. Sit back, and I want you to just start sending love to this water. From your heart, from your mind, from your soul. Start sending love deep, deep, deep into this water. On its physical structure, on its energetic structure, send love to the water. Take a nice deep breath in. And as you exhale, just breathe love into that water. Do that 2 more times. Inhale. And as you exhale, love, breathing into the water. Now, I want you to inhale the love and then exhale love back into that water. Inhaling love from the water, exhaling love to the water. Keeping your eyes closed very slowly, I want you to take a sip of that water. Thank you. Thank you for that. I'm thanking you and the water. But what a wonderful way to honor our planet. And you know, if our mind is so powerful at transforming the world around us, maybe that's the first place we need to start, is within ourselves and sending that love to the world. And we will change the world. So I'm really excited that you're here listening to this podcast. I'm really excited to hear that I'm here doing this podcast. I'm very grateful for you. So one of the next podcasts and it may be the next one, and it may be the one after. My friend Peter Schwartz, he's a shaman, an amazing heart-centered individual. We talked about how we're going to talk about this recent shift, because it was the spring equinox, right? So water is the element for the winter. And he said wood, in native traditions, wood is the element for the spring. So how can we work with the element of winter, with the water, to nourish the wood? So I'm very excited to bring that one with you. That'll come up soon. In a week, or in about a week, he'll be on. So again, thank you so much for coming, listening to the podcast, and may you be blessed with happiness and aligned with purpose. See you next time.